Hello everyone! So the Mister FPGA review I did last time, it got quite a lot of views. I wasn't expecting that much. So I decided to make a follow-up and show a full setup from the assembly of the system to the configurations to get the best graphics and the least amount of input latency. Let's move on to the assembly of the Mister. We'll start with the De10-Nano. This is the main FPGA board. Start by removing the acrylic shield that protects the board. Then unpeel the sticker from the heatsink and attach it to the main chip. Attach the real-time clock board. This board requires a battery and it's responsible for counting the time even when the console is turned off. And when installing it, you don't need to push it all the way in. I pushed it too hard all the way in here and I broke a little piece of the connectors. But even if you break your connector like I did, the board will still work fine. Next, attach the I/O board. You don't need to apply too much pressure, just work your way slowly until the board is completely attached. On the small gap of the I/O board, you're gonna attach the SD Ram module. Pay close attention and you will see which side should be facing outward. Lastly, we're gonna attach the USB hub. And don't forget to install the fans of the I/O board. I didn't have the necessary screws, but I used some double-sided tape to hold the fan in place. And pay close attention to the size of the copper pillars. Make sure you install them in the correct order. Bend the shell a little bit and insert all of the boards. The final result should be like this. All of the ports should be aligned with the shell. Assemble the buttons, the LED windows, attach the side panels and finish everything up. Now your Mister is complete. Now we'll set up the SD card. In this tutorial, we'll be using the Mister Fusion installation method. Grab your SD card, download the latest release, and install one of the 3 image writing softwares here. I used Balena Etcher. All you gotta do is drag the image and select your SD card. Then press flash and wait for the program to write the image. When it's finished, you may get some formatting prompts from Windows, You should just ignore those and remove your SD card. As you can see, the SD card contains all of the necessary files. When inserting your SD card on your Mister, be careful to not miss the slot, or else the SD card may fall inside the shell and you may have to disassemble it to get it back. To avoid that, insert the SD card with the Mister upside down. All you gotta do now is turn on the Mister and wait for Mister Fusion to automatically install everything. When finished, your Mister is ready. We'll still need to install the cores, so take off your SD card again and put it on your computer. For the cores, we'll be using the update all script. Just download the latest release and put it on the scripts folder of your SD card. There's already an update script here, but this is outdated. We want to use that one. Insert the SD card and plug an Ethernet cable, as the update will be done online. Press F1 on your keyboard and press right to access the system settings. And finally select Scripts and run Update All. Before it starts, press up to change the settings. You'll want to enable these settings. After selecting everything, hit Save, then Exit and run Update All. Anytime you want to update your Mister, you'll just need to run this script. On the first time, this process will take a long time, so go do something else and leave the Mister working. When the installation process is finished, you'll have all of the folders you need. Here you can see all of the arcade cores. You have cheats for all games already organized. On the games folder is where you're gonna drop all of your ROMs. If you want to rename your cores, you'll have to edit the names.txt file. Rename only the names on the columns on the right. Another important thing is the S-Video cores. You will need those cores to use the Mister with a CRT television. You should download the S-Video cores on Mike's GitHub. Then drop all of the cores on the S-Video folder and you're good to go. Let's optimize the Mister settings now. Go back to Scripts and you will see a bunch of scripts now. If you have a Wi-Fi USB dongle, you should run this script to configure it. Then you should run the time zone script to set your time zone. And only after that, you'll run the RTC script to update the real-time clock. Lastly, you're gonna go to INI settings. This script will only edit the Mister.ini file. This is the main file the Mister will use when initializing. You can also configure 3 other alternate settings, but you can only edit these settings on the notepad on a computer. So keep one of these as an emergency file or a backup if you messed up anything in the configurations. Here's my recommended configurations for the INI file. On the video mode, you should set the resolution you want for the graphics. I leave mine in 1080p at 60 Hz. But you can set it to anything you'd like. On video scaling mode, set it to 0 to scale to fit the screen height. Use integer scale only is also an option, but you can set the vertical and horizontal scaling inside the core without the need to open the INI file. so leave this option at 0. This is perhaps the most important setting. On VSync Adjust, you should keep it on 2 to get the lowest lag possible. As I've explained before, when using this setting, the screen might flicker a little bit while changing the cores. But in my experience, it's only during that time. If you set it to 0 or 1, you won't have the flicker, but you might have 2 frames of lag. Another super important option is the force scan doubler. This option messes with the analog output. And the rule is simple. If you're using a CRT monitor or a CRT TV, this option should be set to off. If you're using a modern LCD with a VGA in, you should set it to on. If you're having trouble with analog displays, you should check this option to see if you didn't mess anything up. If you're using component cables, you should set this option to on. And for playing with composite video on the S-Video cores, you should set this option to on. And these are the most important options. You can set other minor configurations like rotating the menus, and there are other advanced settings too. I didn't mess with them, but you can research a little bit in the Mister forums if you need. The ones I've shown here are the most important configurations you should keep in mind. You can also mess with the other settings and figure it out by yourself. Just keep a backup of your configurations, or else you might have to reinstall the Mister OS all over again. With the settings done, now you're gonna define the joystick buttons. Configure them like this. And still on the main menu, if you press left, you're gonna see this screen. Here you can see which INI file is being used, and set car volume and global volume. Now let's run some games. When running games on your Mister and you're finished playing, you should open the menu to save your data. You can't turn it off without opening the menu, or else you're gonna lose your data. You can manually save it or turn autosave on, and when you open the menu it will instantly save. When you turn this option on, press right and then save the settings of the core. Now let's optimize the graphics. If you don't want any kind of filters on your Mister, you're good to go right away. You can open the audio and video tab of the core to set the aspect ratio. The scan doubler effects option can give you scan lines, but it isn't so good, so I wouldn't recommend using it. And here on scale option, you can set the integer scaling that you saw before. You can set a vertical integer scaling, and both vertical and horizontal too. But to get a good CRT filter, you should press right and access the Video Processing tab. Here, by pressing the triggers, you can set some presets. The horizontal filter will apply vertical scan lines, and the vertical filter will apply horizontal scan lines. I know it's kinda weird they are reversed. By pressing the A button, you can access more advanced options. On their standard scan lines, these values here represents the opacity of the scan lines. The higher the number, the more transparent they'll be. But the best one is the adaptive scan lines. From what I understood, on the lines with scan lines, it makes the screen darker, and on the lines without the scan lines, it makes it brighter. Again, you can set many different values here. but after testing all of them, I reached the conclusion that the 70 dark and 80 bright is the best option. Next, let's add a shadow mask. This option will try to mimic the pattern of a CRT television between the scan lines. And you can even edit your own shadow mask. I made some here, but the best one is the Sony PVM or the Sony Trinitron. You can set the scaling to 2x. This will make the effect more grainy. Or you can rotate the filter. Lastly, we have to blend in the pixels more. And to do that, we'll add an upscaling effect to the horizontal filter. Here you can see the difference between 0 and 100. 0 means it's fully blurry, and 100 is fully sharp. I wanted to keep a little bit of the sharpness, so I set mine to 45. And there we go, we have a good CRT filter. You can fine-tune this filter to match your taste, but now you have a good idea of what each setting does. I'm playing Secret of Evermore, and you can see how different the graphics looks with the filters on. I never played this game before, so it's cool to revisit some games in the best quality possible. But what about games that ran in LCD screens? Here's Mother 3, and all you have to do is match the filters horizontally and vertically. And to make it easier to configure, you can press the A button here, and the vertical filter will match the horizontal filter. For Game Boy Advance games, the best filter is the LCD color. We have 3 versions of it. One is more pronounced, the other is lighter, and the other one makes the line between the pixels white. And the games are running at 60 FPS. You're seeing 30 FPS here because of my capture card. I set it to 1080p so you can see the graphics better. If I set it down to 720p, you'll see them at 60 FPS. Speaking about Mother 3, this game uses a rhythm-based combat. And the low latency is very important here. But there is a small detail. When playing over HDMI, the audio have a little bit of lag. So to have low latency audio and graphics, you should pass the audio through the analog output. Here you can see the difference. The audio is coming first on the speaker and later on the TV. And that's all for this video. I hope I have clarified all your doubts on the Mister. If you still have any questions, feel free to ask me on my Discord server. The links are in the description. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.